We're visiting today with Philip Smith. He's the Executive Director of West Virginia Botanic Garden here in Matuga County, Morgantown. Philip, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for being on today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's really exciting to be here, Jim.
Yeah, I'm excited to learn more about the West Virginia Botanic Garden and your story.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm excited to tell it.
Positively West Virginia. Positively West Virginia.
Positively West Virginia is powered by Breezeline high-speed fiber internet and sponsored by Highmark West Virginia, Freedom Kia of Morgantown, and Humble Influence. With the help of these sponsors, we're able to share the positive business stories of West Virginians, including the one from today's episode.
All right, Philip, let's start it right at the top. For our listeners who may not know, give us an overview about the West Virginia Botanic Garden and a little bit about your background.
Sure. So the West Virginia Botanic Garden is the state's flagship garden. And I say that because we were able to get the legislature to acknowledge that fact. That doesn't mean that we're a part of the state parks or state of West Virginia. We're not affiliated with WVU. It is a nonprofit organization. It is located here in Morgantown, but we take a lot of pride in being West Virginia's garden. Yeah. And a garden, one of the ways I describe it, it's like a museum of plants. You're familiar with a history museum or an art museum that accessions artifacts or artworks, things like that. We accession plants, and it's much like a vegan zoo. So a little bit about sort of the impetus of the garden. A lot of states have many botanic gardens. A lot of cities have multiple botanic gardens. Yeah. But prior to 2000, West Virginia had zero. And a landscape architecture professor at WVU named George Longenecker and some other volunteers in the community got together and said, West Virginia deserves to have a public garden. And so they just willed it to happen. I would say that, and it's like I said, it's a nonprofit, so it's a lot of volunteers and fundraising. They were able to acquire this property in the year 2000, where we are now. Yeah. But there was nothing there in 2000. There was even a road into the property, so they had to fundraise and find grants to build every little thing that they could. And here we are going on 26 years later, and now we're a major tourism destination in West Virginia and getting a lot of attention that way. And the garden itself is not just a place with specimen plants and gardens to look at. It's also experiential. We have a lot of public programs. We have over 120 public programs a year. We have big events, a number of special events for the community to come out and participate in. We have youth and adult education programs, a lot of summer camps, things like that. And then also art exhibits, because one of the parts of our mission is, obviously we're about plants and nature and conservation, but we also are about culturally enriching experiences. Yeah, so we do everything from concerts to chamber music to folk music, and we have art exhibits and sculpture and things like that. So it's a lot of those things.
And private events as well. I've been to a couple of dinners there and so forth. It's very nice. And so, Philip, thank you for sharing all that background. From the actual garden itself, how much land is there?
There's 83 acres.
83 acres. Yeah. That's a nice size garden.
Occasionally you'll hear me say 85, and it's just because my brain gets a little rattled and I just round up. So but it's 83 acres. Okay. However, about half of that is what we call the Tibbs Run Preserve, and that is a forested area where we don't really do any sort of man-made meddling with anything. It's a nature preserve. We have trails throughout that piece of the property, and very, very well marked trails, and even like signage on trees just to tell you what the names of the trees are and that kind of thing. But that part of the property is really cool though, because it's an old growth hemlock forest, because this property used to be the old reservoir for the city of Morgantown.
Tibbs Run
Reservoir, which got its sort of early beginnings in the 1800s. And so that reservoir was drained in 1980, and the city just had this property. Really nothing going on there, and they saw the value and the West Virginia Botanic Garden sort of taking over management of that property.
That's great. Yeah.
So it's a great public-private partnership. But also, because it was a reservoir, all that land around it was never logged or developed. Yeah. And so we have these old growth hemlocks in there. They're over 200 years old. That's
amazing. And honestly, it's kind of neat that you mentioned the Tibbs Run Reservoir, because there's still remnants of that on the property today. And you can walk through and it's almost like ruins, It is. You can see where the old water supply for the city of Morgantown came from.
Yeah, and we try to be honest with that history, and we have interpretive signage around the site that talks about that history of the water that's there and how it sort of relates to the site's history and the region's history. And there's other history things there too. We even have like the mine pit trail where there was old iron ore mine pits that were dug into the ground, and we interpret that as well. So there's some neat historical pieces of that property that go beyond just our plant collections.
Yeah, I love it. How about a little bit about your background, Philip? Where are you from originally?
So I'm from Roane County, very rural Roane County, Euler, West Virginia, and I'm proud of it. 7th generation West Virginian. I've worked most of my career in the Charleston area, and I think that helps me a lot here because I take a lot of pride in this being West Virginia's garden. Yes. And I really want to make sure that people throughout the state feel represented, even though we're located in Morgantown. Yeah. And a lot of our visitors are from this, north central West Virginia and southern PA region. However, it's important to me that we extend and try to tell West Virginia's story through plants. Yeah. And but yeah, I'm from Roane County. Like I said, I worked in Charleston for many years, Department of Agriculture, worked in municipalities. I've been involved in nonprofits most of my life.
Yeah. What's your education background?
So my undergraduate is from West Virginia State. It was West Virginia State College then, but it is now West Virginia State University, the state's other land-grant university. Right. And I got my degree in biology from there. And a few years ago, I decided coming out of the pandemic, I needed a new challenge. Mm-hmm. And I went back to WVU. Being here in Morgantown, I thought, why not? And got my master's in public administration. Yeah,
so an MPA. Mm-hmm. And how long have you been the executive director for the Botanic Garden?
I'm coming close on my 7th year anniversary.
Oh my gosh, that's great. Well, thank you for your leadership there. That's really great. So how did this whole idea of becoming an executive director for a nonprofit at Botanic Garden, I get the biology background and MPA, Master's in Public Administration, that's great. How did this whole thing come together for you, and why is this important to you as a career?
I love that question because I grew up sort of in the shadow of public service legacy. Mm-hmm. My great-great-grandfather was a Civil War veteran, and he gave parts of his property to found the community. He gave property for a school and for a general store and post office and for a church and et cetera. And he served in the House of Delegates. And so I sort of grew up in that legacy. Yeah. My father was a public servant. He was in the Board of Education and fire department, those types of things. So I've always sort of had that public service mindset and community development. And right in college, when I was an undergraduate, I was volunteering for Child Unlimited and became a volunteer leader there. And I really got my feet wet and volunteerism and nonprofits and boards and that kind of thing there. And I've just that's just sort of how my life sort of progressed in that direction, was in public service and management for the community. It's really important to me to try to make West Virginia better.
Yeah, I love that background, and it really connects the dots for me, and I'm sure our listeners, how you got into this. So if you meet somebody for the first time and they say, Philip, what do you do? What's your 30-second pitch for the West Virginia Botanic Garden?
That's a great thing, and it's hard for me to talk in 30-second pitches, but I would say this, that we're a nonprofit public garden. We serve as both a natural retreat and a cultural asset for West Virginia. From their major events to just people who visit there for the first time trying to figure out what's this thing all about. We're here to improve the quality of life of West Virginians, but also conserving and interpreting our state's natural heritage.
Yeah, I love it. That's great. So what's the thing that has you fired up right now? What are you excited about for the Botanical Garden?
Yeah,
Botanic Garden.
It's all right. It's right now it's our phase 1 of our master plan for improved central gardens. we have a number of gardens within the garden, and we are looking to do a lot of landscape improvements. And this spring, we're going to break ground on our phase 1 of that project. I'm real excited about seeing that come to be, and I think that a lot of people are going to be proud of that once it's done, and they're going to come out and start seeing how this thing is taking shape.
Yeah, that's awesome. This is Positively West Virginia. We'll be right back.
Your prescriptions are designed to keep you healthy, active, full of life. At Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield, we're making vital medicine more affordable. Because when your prescriptions don't cost an arm and a leg, you can use those limbs for something more meaningful. Because life. Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield, West Virginia.
Stay connected with an unbeatable deal from Breezeline. Voted best in Mountaineer Country for their reliable, high-speed fiber internet for a low cost, Breezeline is the best gig in town. You know, here at InnerAction Media, we rely on high-speed internet every single day to ensure we can deliver the best content possible for our clients and when we publish Positively West Virginia each week. That's why we use Breezeline. It's affordable, fast, and they're great people as well. Learn more about Breezeline's internet, TV, and mobile options at breezeline.com. Folks, we're back. We're visiting with Philip Smith. He is the executive director for the West Virginia Botanic Garden. West Virginia's Garden. I love that. It's a nonprofit organization. And from time to time, Philip, we love to highlight and showcase the great works that nonprofits across West Virginia are doing, because it's such an important thing, not only for the communities, but it's also a source of employment and career path for people as well as an opportunity. So I want to get back into the garden itself. So for folks who haven't been to West Virginia's garden, what can they expect? First of all, you're out in like the Cheat Lake area, kind of.
Yeah, Cheat Lake-ish.
Give us an example, or a description of where you're located and what can they expect when they come.
Yeah, so we're right off of I-68, just a few miles off I-68. If people, most people have come to Morgantown at least for a WVU football game or something like that. And if you go 68, you can get off at either the Saberton exit or the Cheat Lake exit and get there either way. I would tell you the address, but I'm sure you could just plug it in your phone and it'll take you right there. So you get there. We have a brand new visitor center that we opened. Our first full year was this last year for the visitor center. Of course, it's closed in January and February. This is kind of the downtime for us, and it's a good time for us to plan for all of our events coming up. But in the summertime and the spring, as these spring ephemerals are popping out, people want to come visit. Stop at the visitor center. We have a gift shop there. We have a cafe, and it's sort of an outdoor seating cafe. Beautiful views of the forest while you sit there and have a coffee or a salad or whatever. And then as you make your way down into the gardens, we have about 4 miles of trail total. But people are like, I can't hike 4 miles. You don't have to hike. You can make it whatever you want. It's sort of choose your own adventure. Most of our landscaped gardens are pretty near parking. But as you sort of expand out into the property, you'll find other little hidden gems here and there. And we are carefully placed artistic sculptures in places that sort of you'll be walking a trail and you'll look down and you'll see the sculpture and you think, how do I get down next to that? And so we try to lead your eyes in places to get you to explore. It's much different than a park. You think about a county park or a city park or even to some extent a state park. We're way different than that because you're going to see, like I said, art sculpture. You're going to see a lot of interpreted plants. We have a lot of native plantings, but a lot of non-invasive ornamental plantings. And you'll see signs for all those plantings that tell you the name of the common name and the species name and all that and what zones it grows in. So we hope that it inspires people who like to plant flowers around their own house and inspire their own landscape. And so they can come out and see what grows well in this region and how to present those plants.
That's wonderful. the West Virginia Botanic Garden is a favorite place of mine. My wife, Rebecca, we love
awesome.
coming out there. We have a grandson. We have two now, but our little grandson, Connor, he loves to go out and explore the trails. And one of the things that I'm big on is getting people outside and moving, enjoying West Virginia, getting out in the fresh air. And the thing I love about the West Virginia Botanic Gardens trails are they're kind of beginner trails, right? You mentioned 4 miles, but anybody can do these. And they're actually, I have a son who's in a wheelchair, and we've taken him out on the trail as well. They're accessible mostly.
Yeah.
And I think that's really wonderful. So if you're a beginner, talk about that experience of like getting people out, just maybe they've never taken a hike in the woods before.
That's so true. I'm like a backpacker.
Yeah, me too,
I go to Dolly Sods and I go all, and I,
That's super cool.
I'm like big boy backpacking and getting on the trails and even bushwhacking. But I also understand there's a little bit of intimidation for a lot of people. And our trails are all very, very well marked. You will not find a trail junction that does not have trail signage. We have "You Are Here" maps out there that you might be 200 yards from your car, and if you're the type of person that you get 200 yards from your car and you're panicking, there'll be a "You Are Here" sign. Cool. We try to remove friction. It's really important to me to remove friction from our visitors. And make sure that they have a quality experience and they're not stressed out. And so, we have our main trail is the Reservoir Loop Trail that circles the old reservoir, and it's now a wetland complex. And that trail is very tight gravel that we roll in and make it as accessible as possible. Yeah,
I think that's great. Yeah, I love it. And it's depending on the time of year, the experience could be different. Now, you mentioned January and February. The visitor center is closed. Is the garden open, or
the garden is open? Yep, the garden is open 365 days a year.
So you can go hike during the winter. So if you're a little bit like me, a little bit of gun shy of snakes, and you don't want to be out there in the summertime, you can go out and hike right now and in the snow and everything. That's pretty cool. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the why behind it. Conservation, education. Those are very important things. But what's the big why for you? Like, why should people come experience the Botanic Garden?
I think it's the individual stories. I'm big on the individuals and their own experience. I try to view the garden through the lens of a visitor, especially a first-time visitor. And whenever I bring family that have never been there, I'm hanging on their every body motion, because those things tell a story to me. And I think it's the story. We're presenting plants, to people, but this isn't a place that we invite people to come and see our plants. I like to tell my staff, this isn't our garden, it's ours as West Virginians. And this is belongs to all of us. And I think that what we're trying to do is to get people to engage in their own story with natural history and what is in their natural world, and maybe to slow down and learn something new, experience something new, find a plant they didn't know existed, or just sort of, have a little bit more enriched experience with nature. And I think that lends itself to creating a new story. Yeah. And, I love to hear those stories,
That makes such a big impact, across generations. It could be somebody who's 5 years old. It could be somebody who's 75 years old. Right. Doesn't matter. All those things are important. And I think, like you live in Fairmont. I live here in Morgantown. And within an hour and a half drive, we have access to some of the most magnificent outdoor spaces in the world. I mean, honestly, it's incredible. I think just in Morgantown, the amount of state parks that I can just drive to. And now you have the West Virginia Botanic Garden for the last, you said 26 years or so?
No. Yeah, 26 years.
26 years. That's pretty profound. And right here in our backyard. And sometimes it is kind of sad to me a little bit. And one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show to talk about this is to encourage people, hey, you've got this in your backyard. You need to go check it out.
That's right.
Yeah,
it's funny. I have people that are acquaintances that I will tell them what I do, and they'll say, "Oh, that sounds neat. That's not really my thing." And I'll say, well, you need to give it a chance, and I keep badgering them. And then I had one of those individuals recently who came to me and he said, and he had told me before, he was like, I'm not into trails. I'm not into all that kind of stuff. Yeah. He brought a date to the Botanic Garden, and he came in to see me, and his eyes were silver dollars. He said, I can't believe all that was there, and I've never stopped to see it. Yeah. And I've even met people who live on the road where we exist, and they say, I just thought it was just this thing right beside the road. I had no idea there was 83 acres down there with all this stuff.
Trails and all kind of cool stuff to do, and to go spend a day,
Right, and that's what we're trying to do, especially with the cafe now. Come out, spend the day, you get hungry, come up and eat at the cafe.
Now, was the cafe open on regular hours, or
it will be? It's seasonal because it's an outdoor dining area. So it'll be from May to October.
Yeah, that's great. And I imagine all that is on your website and everything.
Yeah,
so folks can check that out. This is Positively West Virginia. We'll be right back.
In a world obsessed with leadership, what if the real key to success is followership? We hear it all the time. Be a leader. Take charge. But what if the most impactful people aren't the ones leading from the front? In Humble Influence, I explore how humility, collaboration, and shared purpose empower followers to create meaningful change in business, organizations, and relationships. Discover the strength of true followership with Humble Influence.
Folks, we're back. We're visiting with Philip Smith. He's the executive director for the West Virginia Botanic Garden here in Monongalia County. Philip, you have an event center. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's so all of our operating revenue comes typically, in the past, it came from our memberships and through donations. Things like that. But in 2022, we were able to build an event center, and that's now a good way for us to generate some additional revenue. And it's really a modern facility. You think of a lot of wedding places that are barns, and that's great. Some people love that. But we also wanted to create this another alternative that's a very modern place, but also very fitting for a botanic garden. Mm-hmm. And it's a 6,300 square foot event center. And we do rentals there. And the neat thing about those rentals is that rental revenue all goes back into the community and for the state of West Virginia and for people to come back and experience improved garden spaces. So it's a beautiful building. It's got these floor-to-ceiling glass across the front that overlooks the garden and a large deck where you can kind of step out and really kind of immerse yourself in the garden.
I've been there for a couple of events, and it is a gorgeous facility, and I love the modern feel to it. You could have gone like you said, the rustic design, but this is just, and it fits, and it's beautiful, and it fits within the landscaping and so forth.
Yeah, the architects won some awards for that building.
Really?
So,
that's wonderful. So you can use it for a wedding venue or a get together, dinner,
business.
Or business. Yeah.
Yep.
I've been to. I serve on the Morgantown area partnership board, and we've had meetings out there and business after hours and so forth. It's a really great facility. So that's awesome. So I guess, for people who aren't familiar with tourism, because you mentioned as a tourist destination or nonprofit, what do you think is something that is a trend here in West Virginia that people should be paying attention to right now?
I think that from a tourist perspective or tourism industry perspective, I think it's important for people to see the sustainability portion of that. I don't see this going away. I see it growing. We have, and I grew up in West Virginia and central West Virginia, and man, I'm so proud of this state. I'm so proud of our natural beauty. And that's the thing. Whenever you see a commercial about West Virginia, we need small business, and we need commerce, and we need industry and all that. But you know what we kind of bristle up and like stick our chests out is when we see those flyover views of Seneca Rocks or, the Southern Mon or New River Gorge. It's like those are the things you're like, that's my home. That's what I want people to see. And so I think that, I think we all sort of, no matter what your background is or if your disagreements with your neighbor about things, I think we all agree that this place is beautiful,
Yeah.
and we love to share that.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a sort of a galvanizing thing for us is tourism. You know, I think we all can get behind the idea of tourism helping West Virginia, our image, helping us to grow economically.
Yeah.
And so I see it expanding. Great, Chelsea Ruby with the Department of Tourism. She made some comments at our last summit about how how much we've grown just in the last few years, and showed this great data. And then I look at that and I think, but then the sky's the limit. We are the wild, wild place in the eastern United States where all the population is. And so, the most visited national park has always been the Great Smoky Mountains in Tennessee. Why not West Virginia?
Yeah, so. I agree. And, you don't have to be located in Fayetteville, West Virginia to capitalize on some of the tourism opportunities, right? You can do it right here in Morgantown, or, you can do it in Roane County.
You can, absolutely.
And what I'm thinking, is like, just giving you an example, this past weekend we were in Thomas for a day, in Davis in Tucker County. And it is unbelievable what's happened there in the last 10 years.
I know, right?
I mean, it is like a complete different place. But what's interesting to me is, like, you have the ski resorts, you have, hiking trails and all sorts of backpacking opportunities, mountain biking,
year round,
everything. There's something going on. But you know what makes the all that beauty extra special? It's the people.
You're right.
And it's the small business owners, those little shop owners. When you go down to Thomas and you pop in these little shops, it's really cool. And those little shops are essential to tourism, I think. You have to have places to have people have some place to eat, or go shopping, or go check out what's happening in the community. If they're not skiing or backpacking or hiking or whatever, on their downtime, they want to have something to do. And those small businesses are real opportunities, I think.
It affects everything, and I think that's what's sometimes lost, is some people think tourism, the economic activity might be, the guy working in the restaurant at Snowshoe or whatever, but that's an easy out. It's also, the tow truck driver who, has got an increase in business because there's an increase of traffic. It is the cafe. It's the insurance agent. Everybody sort of benefits from this added interest in our state and this added visitation.
I think there's a real opportunity for West Virginians, especially if folks are sitting on the sidelines and thinking about starting a business. There's a lot of business opportunity around the tourism industry. Absolutely. You don't have to have a destination or an attraction. You can be, kind of an ancillary business to that attraction. Like the West Virginia Botanic Garden, there's a business that could tie into that traffic that you're getting there somewhere in the vicinity there, and say, hey, we're part of this.
I mean, it's everything. It's somebody who prints T-shirts, or somebody who does advertising. All these people benefit from the destinations. Yeah,
it's really interesting. Thanks for going down that path with me there for a second. A little off the subject, but honestly, I think it's
important to note that.
I think it is too. So, Philip, do you have employees that work there as well?
Sure do.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I think the one thing that I have to celebrate a little bit and brag is that I've worked in a lot of places, and I have never been around employees who did more with less.
Yeah.
People will come to the Botanic Garden and think, oh my gosh, they must have an army of people who take care of this place. Yeah. Manicure these gardens, take care of these facilities, et cetera. We have grown tremendously since I've been there with our employment. But that being said, the majority of our employees are part-time, and we take full advantage of volunteers. We have a lot of volunteers, and they are our unpaid staff, and they do so much for us, and they do it with a smile on their face, and they create community because they find new friends by volunteering, pulling weeds on a Thursday, or helping to do bartending at one of our dinner events or whatever. We have a lot of that sort of community building that happens with our volunteerism. But our staffing has grown. we have about 12 year-round staff right now.
Great.
But a lot, like I said, a lot of those are part-time. So.
Well, how do folks get plugged in if they wanted to volunteer and maybe maintain trails or work on the gardens? Is there a way to do that?
Yeah, it's right on our website. It's, you just go to wvbg.org. There's a tab that says volunteer. You fill out a little bit of, brag on yourself a little bit. Tell us what your talents are, and we try to plug you into where we think you would like to go, or we give you that opportunity to sort of choose your own adventure as far as volunteering.
I like that a lot. So you've been with the organization a number of years. You've worked in different roles in your career. You're a leader here in the community as the executive director of West Virginia Botanic Garden. Philip, what would you say is one of the most important traits of a effective or a great business leader today?
I think for me, it's, I really get nervous around the word success because I'm always looking to the future. I don't want to rest and think about what we've done. We built this event center. That's great. We built this visitor center. That's great. But after it's done, now I'm moving on. What's the next thing? Sure. I think it's important to have those high aspirations, the very audacious goals. And then I'm a big believer in you come into work every day thinking, what's a step I can make today to get towards that goal?
Yeah. I think that's wonderful. There is a lot to celebrating. You got to celebrate the wins, but then you got to be moving on, right?
You do.
If you rest on your laurels,
that's right.
Not to have a botanic inference there. But you want to, if you're not growing, you're dying.
That's right. Let other people celebrate your succwe but as a leader, you've got to look ahead.
That's great wisdom. I appreciate that. Now, you mentioned when we were doing some small talk before the show that you're a fly fisherman. That's one of your passions. That's obviously you have to be a conservationist because we want to have clean water and so forth. How does that tie in, like your passion for the outdoors, tie in with what you're doing as a career?
I mean, that's really how I got my teeth into this and sort of got addicted to this kind of work was, like I said, in college, I was starting fly fishing and I started volunteering at the local chapter of Trout Unlimited.
Trout Unlimited,
And that, and they embraced me as like a family, and would take me fishing, these old men that would just say, hey, I'll take you, I'll show you some places. And that really got my excitement up about our natural resources that we have, especially in West Virginia, but also the things that I don't think a lot of the public know about, like how many wild trout streams we have, or also like the hatches on the streams and how the fish and the ecology of the system work together and all that stuff. And I think that's also helped me a lot to be a noticer. I love the word perspicacious, and I think that's important, especially in a nonprofit world where you're juggling so many balls, but you have to do all the things, but you also have to really notice anything that's off or anything that's good and take advantage of that. And so building on strengths comes with taking notice. And I think that being a fly fisherman helps me to notice things, because when you get on the river, you don't just jump in. You kind of got to stop and pause and evaluate the scene and come up with a strategy.
You have to realize that blue-wing olive that just hatched may be the fly you need to tie on, right? And if you're not paying,
noticed it,
if you're not paying attention,
it's there, right?
Exactly. That's good stuff. I appreciate that. Philip, how does technology play into your role now as an executive director for a garden? Are you guys using any types of technology? And
it's a great question.
In the world.
And so I mentioned earlier that we have a lot of part-time staff. We don't have a real large team because I don't have a lot of operating budget yet. That's my goal, is to get that. So as I look at that as maybe a challenge of trying to grow our budget and and fundraising and that type of thing, I'm also looking at the other end of that. You can complain about not having enough money, but you can also look at your systems. And systems are things you can normally address without as much expense as hiring new employees. And so some of those systems might be procedures, but they also might be software and technology. And so we're excited about we've just changed to a new new software platform this last year that for it was a lot of jargon, but we're really excited about how this particular software is going to help us to be more efficient with our work. It's not necessarily going to add a lot of like bells and whistles, but I think the efficiency piece is really going to really help tremendously.
That's cool.
And then we're cognizant of AI. I wouldn't say that we don't use AI because I'd be lying. But because of the sort of as a conservation organization, we have to be very eco-conscious about the effects of AI on our environment. So we can't be too hypocritical there. But I would say that we try to leverage, technology where we can and where it's appropriate.
Yeah, that's great. What would you say, Philip, somebody who's worked for several years in nonprofits with a master's in public administration, what kind of advice would you give somebody thinking about maybe starting a nonprofit or working in a nonprofit here in West Virginia?
That's a great question. I think that I look at it from the business end as well. And there's this quote from Reid Hoffman, who's the founder of LinkedIn. And he says, if you are not embarrassed by your first version of your product, you launch too late. Yeah. And I'm a believer in just like, kinetic action. Yeah. You got to start. Because if you have paralysis by analysis with anything, you'll talk yourself out of it. And I do that myself sometimes. And I have to constantly watch myself that, I strive to be perfect, and I surround myself with people who want to be perfect. But if you let the perfect get in the way of action, then you're too late. And I think it's good to just keep things moving, make decisions, allow yourself to fail. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. And like I said, I'm a staunch advocate for nonprofit organizations here in West Virginia because I believe that they are a essential part of the ecosystem of entrepreneurship. An entrepreneur and small business mindset doesn't just exist in the for-profit world.
That's right.
You have to have those skills.
We call it the third sector. Yeah. You have the government's one sector, you have your for-profit businesses one sector, and then you have nonprofits. And nonprofits fill so many essential roles. Even roles that once our public servants at the government used to be able to handle, but through budget cuts or whatever, now nonprofits have to pick up that and sort of be a social safety net also to fulfill things like, creating a better well-being for our communities.
Yeah. And, I can't imagine a for-profit business buying 83 acres and turning it over to, the public use to say, hey, come hike on our trails, so that
without charging a fortune.
Yes, exactly. So that's a very essential piece, especially here in West Virginia, I think, with all the things we've already talked about. I think that's great. Philip, we've covered a lot in this interview, and I appreciate you sharing the story. I'm excited. I want to go for a hike right now, at the West Virginia Botanic Garden. Is there anything else about your story or that of the Botanic Garden that you would like to maybe hit on that we haven't already done?
I would just say that one piece I didn't mention earlier is how friendly we are for families. Yeah. You mentioned bringing kids out. We have a children's garden. We have this fun little fairy garden.
The fairy garden. Talk about that. I forgot about that.
Yeah, we encourage kids to sort of create fairy houses out of natural materials. Yeah. We discourage bringing tchotchkes and little things like that to leave in the woods because they end up getting left in the woods and it becomes garbage. So, but we try to embrace children's imagination. When I was growing up in Euler, West Virginia, there wasn't a whole lot of kids around, so I had to play using my imagination. Yeah. And I think a lot of us remember that, especially my age, where we didn't have all the technology and the cable TV and all that. And I think that's something that's a little bit lost, and we try to encourage that for kids to come out and engage their imagination.
Yeah, that's great.
And so, and likewise, I want to encourage adults to engage their imagination. Come out and look at the plants and say, this would look good in my front yard. or this would be nice out by the pool or whatever. And then that's from a plant perspective, but also just to be inspired, maybe to paint something. Come to one of our classes. Yeah. Like I said, we do over 120 workshops and programs, everything from learning how to field journal to doing a mushroom walk with a professor from WVU who will teach you all about the mushrooms that you're going to encounter in the wild, or
what's your
things
safe
like
to
that.
eat. Which are, yeah.
Well, yeah. So yeah, it's like there's a lot of learning that can happen there. So
that's
get
awesome.
more from your garden. That's a phrase that I say a lot, and it's because it's our garden as West
Virginia's
Virginians.
garden, yeah.
And you can come out and walk your dog. And that's fine, but also if that's all you ever do, like you're missing a whole lot. So think about another way you can engage with our space and how we can help West Virginian.
Our guest once again is Philip Smith, Executive Director of the West Virginia Botanic Garden, West Virginia's garden. Yeah. Philip, how can folks learn more about you and maybe even get in touch with you personally, or go out and see the garden?
Yeah,
What's
so it's so you can come see the garden. Just type in West Virginia Botanic Garden on your maps on your smartphone, and it'll take you right there. But you can go to wvbg.org. Yep. As in West Virginia Botanic Garden, wvbg.org. Look up, find more information about us. That way you can follow us on social media. We're on Facebook and Instagram, and then also you can get in touch with us. So we have a phone number online. You can just look it up, or info@wvbg.org.
Yeah, that's great. Philip, it's been an honor to have you on the show to learn more in depth about the West Virginia Botanic Garden.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
I just think it's incredible what you're doing and the organization is doing to keep these types of things really at the forefront of West Virginia. And I just want to encourage you to keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Folks, that's a wrap on another episode of Positively West Virginia. If you or someone you know would be a great guest on the show, drop us a line on our website at positivelywv.com. And of course, we appreciate your comments. We appreciate you sharing these episodes with your audience on social media and getting the word out there about West Virginia Botanic Garden, Philip Smith and his story, and keeping the podcast in front of our growing audience as well. On behalf of our entire Positively West Virginia team, including our producer today, Mr. Jimmy Murray behind the controls, I'm your host, Jim Matuga. Stay positive, West Virginia.
We'd like to thank our partners, Highmark West Virginia, Freedom Kia of Morgantown, InnerAction Media, Humble Influence, and our studio sponsor, Breezeline, for helping to share these positive stories. If you'd like to become a sponsor of the Positively West Virginia podcast, visit positivelywv.com/sponsor.